Well, let me take you straight to India's big deal. I did mention to you the $7.4 billion deal with France, 26 Rafale Marine jets, all set to be part of India's arsenal. Armed with Meteor missiles, stealth flying carrier takeoffs, Rafales bring some deadly precision to Indian skies and seas. Of course, there are several questions, and I will get my guests to give us a little more clarity on Rafale being a game changer. We know that Rafale's Meteor missiles are unmatched. It's got unmatched air combat capabilities, and Rafale really redefines its dominance in space. It's one of the best, and India now owns a bunch of them. It's going to come only in 2030. So, of course, we're going to look at whether this is going to add immensely to our arsenal. In case of a war, something that, if at all, we could face another strike like the Balakot air battle. Will the Rafale really be ready to combat India? If we see that Rafale has the most precision strikes, it comes at a cost of 63,000 crores, and we hear this investment at this point has been justified as the best bid to protect India's borders. And this comes at a cost considering its superiority. This is surely a deal that is done to protect India. India not only is depending on its imports, we know that India at the same time, while signing a deal on Rafale, is also pushing hard on indigenous jets like Tejas Mk2, AMCA to bridge the gap, to see if there is any, of course at this point there are delays in Rafale, 2030 is when it's set to be coming. In the meanwhile, we see India relying on indigenous machinery. So Atmanirbhar mission is still very much on track. With every Tejas, every homegrown engine, we seem to be getting a little closer to that. And while that said, we also know countries like China, who's currently testing the 6th generation fighters. US is currently using their drone swarms. Russia has upgraded to Sukhois. And of course, India is now building smart and securing proven firepower and preparing for its next leap. But how soon and how fast? Let me take it through our panelists joining us to talk a little more. Air Marshal Dipendu Chaudhary, thanks very much, sir, for joining us. We also have former Commandant of National Defence with us. Air Marshal Dipendu, give us your take on this Rafale jets that have now been added to our arsenal. Another 5 years for it to actually physically be present. But what does this really speak of India's capabilities going forward? And does it really bridge the gap in that in the 5 years? How are we going to really align our machinery to show our strength?
Thank you very much for having me on board for this show. And yes, it's indeed a landmark deal. It's something with the Indian Navy has been, I think, waiting with pretty bated breath for a long time. And it's a great addition to India's military capabilities. But I think your opening statement itself stated the facts that it's a deal which is 5 years in the being, in the sense that it'll take a long time, 5 years at least, before the platform is fully inducted or operationally absorbed. All the pilots are trained, all the weapons come through, the training goes through, and they add on to India's firepower and India's military capability. But if you compare it with take a larger standoff perspective and see what is it going to do to the present state of affairs, nothing directly, I'm afraid. But why it assumes immense concern is that the present situation, because this is where I believe that the Pakistani Air Force is already pushed into carrying out some exercises. Obviously, they're a nation I'm pretty rattled right now, and sort of taking all the actions which they can. They're sort of following a predictable game plan militarily. And I think they're, for once, really worried. But yes, to keep it short, I think the Rafale is an absolute welcome to India's military capability, but it's a capability which will start showing its real effects probably 4 to 5 years down the line.
Well, you said that. I'd like to ask you about the cost. It's 63,000 crores. There was enough politics that played when the deal was due to be struck. Finally, it has now gone forward. the kind of budget that has been spared, it's ultimately taxpayers' money, do you feel has been in the right direction? And you have countries like China that's now testing 6th-generation fighter jets. By the time this even comes into our arsenal, are we still updated at that point?
Okay, a few quick thoughts, and these are purely my personal thoughts.
Yeah.
That yes, it's a necessity to have a strong naval aviation. Most certainly, carriers are not for sure unless and until they have lethal platforms on board. They really don't mean much. And it's only when the air power it brings to the Navy's repertoire of warfare, it's a very important step ahead. But the point I would like to make here is that Navy has, I think, called it's an interim jet, and it's going to come in 5 years' time. And if you're going to buy it only as a mere interim measure, is something which you need to relook, because seeing the, like you mentioned, the cost of the deal. Because, like, for example, the Indian Air Force uses platforms for a much, much longer time. The cost benefit ratios are extracted when you have a platform for a longer time. And yes, most certainly, while it meets the needs for a naval maritime air power, but one cannot deny and especially under the present circumstances, the absolutely urgent necessity and the gap which we have because of the 114 aircraft, which the Indian Air Force needs so desperately. And it's a gap which the Atmanirbharta cannot fill in the short term. So this
Yeah.
is something which we'll have to consider. And this deal probably gives us sort of steps or way or thought ahead as to one of the options of what we could do in the future.
All right. Well, this is one of the options in the future, but it's not an option. It's now a certainty that it will be aligned with our arsenal, and that'll happen in 2030. But in the meanwhile, I think we have enough of indigenous machinery at this point that we're shaping up to also be self-reliant. Nonetheless, the intent was clear. In light of the Pahalgam attacks, we see that the deal has been signed. It really sends out a strong message.